Hello, fellow heroes and villains. Today I have for you part 5 of my 5-part miniseries of a list of decks that I believe have a great chance at taking down Common Ground at HLC in Las Vegas. As a recap, Common Ground is an event where you can run any character in your deck, regardless of rarity, but the cards in your deck have to be common and uncommon cards only. With that being said, you can actually use character cards in your deck as buddy blocks, but everything else needs to be common and uncommon. So, what we've looked at so far is we've looked at Earth Ojiro, which is very, very strong. One of my favorites all around. We've taken a look at Eraserhead 1 on Void, which, again, if I was a bet man, is probably where I'm putting my money on this event. We've looked at Air Giro. And then most recently, we took a look into Life Toga, which is kind of a spicy deck, I think, as well. And to round out my list of top 5 decks that I think have a viable chance at taking down Common Grounds, we're looking at one of my favorite characters to play in the game, and that is Death Arms. And for this deck, we will be playing it on the Chaos symbol. Some of the reasons why I like Chaos is because the attack package, when you're looking at 5 difficulty attacks, which is what Death Arms really thrives off of. It has a really well-rounded attack package, and you also have access to 8 cards that can either get rid of throw with Confused or Training with Gunhead to reduce throw damage. And again, I think that throw hate is going to be wildly important in this event. And then you do also have some stat reduction. Not a lot, but there is some. He's a 29 health character, so he's already kind of one of the more beefy characters that you might end up seeing. And then on his face, he has the ability to buff his own stats on all of his attacks, which makes them harder to block and harder hitting. Combo that with his response, which is incredible. I think this guy has a ton of play in this limited event, where you're looking at being able to control their throw hate foundation so you can land your own throws, or just control their most important pieces to really shut down what their deck is trying to do. With this limited format, the foundations you're going to be seeing are likely a little less powerful than they would otherwise be in an open format when you look at an entire package of foundations. So being able to control their best foundations could be super impactful for this format. So again, to round out that top 5, or my 5 favorite lists of decks that I think can take this event, we're going to be taking a look at this list, which is Chaos Death Arms. If you've enjoyed this content, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. It really means a lot to me. And yeah, so let's jump right in. Let's take a look at this last list, and hope you enjoy it. Okay, so this last deck that we have for you, as far as the 5 decks that I feel have a good chance at winning Common Ground, is Chaos Death Arms. I really like this character. He's been my favorite character to play. That enhance that he's got, giving a +1 speed, +2 damage to all of your attacks with a printed difficulty 5 or greater, comes into play quite a bit. And that response is one of the most fun responses in the game in my eyes. Being able to selectively commit 2 of your rivals' best foundations on a whim just feels very strong, has a ton of use, ton of play, and I don't think that's any different. In fact, it might even be better in a limited format. So on his face, he's an incredibly good character, super fun to play, and the nice thing about Chaos is that the attack package, even with only commons and uncommons, really works well with him. You have access to some really strong 5 difficulty attacks on Chaos. The ability to generate momentum on a whim with Blue Flame Palm Strike, which can later be used for Death Arms Wallop to make a really fast, really strong attack to finish your opponent. You've got a really good throw with Trap Flex, so if your opponent doesn't have that throw hate, or you've committed it down with Death Arms, and you're behind on foundations, this attack hits like a truck. And you've also got Grab Lift as a throw, which can come in for a lot of damage. Cavalry Chariot Advance to give all your attacks extra speed. Buff damage on a second attack. So again, if your opponent doesn't have a throw hit, you can make a really huge Trap Flex or a really huge Grab Lift and dish out a lot of damage, gaining that momentum with your throws, and then dumping them into a Death Arms Wallop late in the game, or even a Blue Flame Palm Strike if your opponent can't block that with that powerful 3 to hit them for a good amount of damage late. So Really good synergy with this attack package, I feel like. And then on your foundations, you do have some of the important criteria that I look for this format. We'll look at Clever Distraction as a way to reduce speed to allow you to block more often. We'll look at also Encouraging Train Partner. If your opponent's made an attack really, really fast, having the ability to reset that speed back to 4, allowing you to potentially block more easily. Really good. You've also got access to Confused, which can negate throws. I've got 2 in the main, 2 in the side, just in case if your opponent's not running throws, this may not be the most important thing in the world, but having access to all 4 is really good. I do have 4 training with Gunhead in the main as a potential throw hit, but also it pairs really well with League Interview. So you're checking you're modifying the check to your first attack, and you're able to grant that first attack some additional speed, either opening that attack up for damage, or if it's blocked, opening up an easier means of landing damage with later attacks. So some neat plays there that you've got. You've also got Honorable Forfeit, which pairs really well with this attack package. You're pretty spread between, you've got a handful of highs, you've got a mid, and a couple of mids with Blue Flame and Trap Flex, and you've got a low with Death Arms Wallop. So a good spread, so you should get to use this one quite a bit. And especially being that you're playing 5 difficulty attacks, modifying that check is important there. And then again, once you've done that, you can get additional speed on that next attack with your training with Gunheads. So really good synergy there. You got a fair amount of really strong 0 diff foundations. So just all around, I feel like this deck can really crank out a lot of damage in a hurry, and it can control your opponent. So you're not too worried about who your opponent is and what character they are. You're able to lock down their best foundations. Where I think this deck might struggle, though, is just like any Death Arms build, where it struggles is if it gets into the late game. If your opponent can successfully build a wall and fend off your attacks long enough, it can get really challenging to crack through. Just the fact that the commit to really isn't wildly important once your opponent has 15 foundations in play, let's say. So it really is a deck that wants to punish your opponent early in the game, and if you fail to do so, could potentially struggle here a little bit. So that's where I see maybe some of the struggles. The good thing, though, is that even if your opponent does build a wall, you do have 8 throws. So again, if you can use Death Arms Face to potentially control that throw hate, you have access at least to continue to hit your opponent for a little bit of damage here and there. Maybe to eventually whittle them away enough to where you take that game. But that's where I see some of the struggles, and then also just the fact that he's playing all 5s. So it gets progressively more challenging to string out a long chain of attacks. So overall, though, I really like the deck. Really love Death Arms. One of my favorite characters. Highly recommend you check this list out. Give it a try. Give it a thought. Let me know what you think. Yep. Thanks, everybody, and stay plus ultra.